Hi guys, and welcome to Reality with T. So I'm going to review the Braxton Family Values episodes 2 and 3. So I watched them everything in a row. I took my notes. So in case I get a little mixed up, just bear with me. Okay? So we start out with, remember they just had the first episode, they had the whole like freaky bachelorette party that was so cool. So we see the family gets together for breakfast in the morning, all the women and the mother. And so, Tamar, she's talking about, oh, the bachelorette party was so nasty and we need a sanctified bachelorette party and blah, blah, blah. She's dragging it and it gets annoying. You can see everybody's face after a while. Like, Tamar, cut this act. As freaky as you are and the show me more leg and do this and that and this is what I do for my husband and my man, all of a sudden you are so sanctified and can't be around this and talking about you want to be saved again. Like, I get the joke, but like, okay, let it go. And then she starts like, so like, kind of letting out stuff to the mother. It's like, come on, why are you doing this? Like you, and then especially since Tawanda put so much, and whoever plans it put so much into it, and it was Trina's bachelorette party. Why are you talking so much crap about it? You know what I mean? Just like it was like, haha, that's funny. Okay, let it go. Like she's dragging it, of course, and you see everybody, especially see Traci, like. I don't find her funny. I don't find this funny. I'm not like she has that face, so something is brewing anyway, right? So then they talk about the cake issue. Basically, Trina had ordered a cake that's supposed to look like a peacock. First one, it got messed up, looked like a duck, or the second one looked like a duck. Either way, it was two cheapish kind of cakes that came messed up. And so, or it was one cake that looked messed up, so then they ordered another one, and that one was supposed to come. And then later we see that one come and the thing falls apart. So, um, Tamar says something at the table like don't take the Costco way out, and then you see again Traci is not amused, like who are you to be she's like one of those people that you trying to be funny but you're not, like why are you taking little jabs at me, like I'm trying to be cheap. This is not the only time she did this, because on her Tamar show she was like, yeah, and Traci had us sitting in our same seats from the wedding as was the reception, and they were like, oh, that's cheap or something like that. Like, who are you? First of all, you don't have all the money you had when Vince was with you, so who are you to be talking about somebody's cheap? Like, it just like she just keeps kind of like throwing her sisters under the bus and trying to cover it with like trying to mask it with being humorous or I'm just playing. Like, I don't like stuff like that. Excuse me. You know what I mean? So, so then she's talking about, oh, let's like have this slumber party. So she comes out, that evening with all the sisters where they dress up in like, funny looking pajamas or whatever. So at the slumber party, Tamar's acting, oh my God, so holier than thou. She comes out with this whole like outfit as if she's a priest and the whole thing. And, it was just like annoying. Everybody's making faces. And it would just kind of came off as like, I get that you're trying to be funny, but like it was also seen as like being kind of negative. You know what I mean? Sorry about the horns. I'm in New York City, y'all. So it's just like, come on, like let it go. You know what I mean? So they have the wedding rehearsal. The cake does come messed up, right? You see so Trina reveal her dress to Tony, and then Tony says, listen, me and Tamar are gonna work, but we'll fix the cake for you, right? And so, and I love that. Like, I don't know, Tony is just such a superstar to me. I'm like, I wanna come to dinner with my sunglasses on and my hair beat and all of my makeup beat, and just like she is just like everything. I always say I see why she was a superstar of the family, because she wears it, she carries it. Though Tamar is as talented, she doesn't have that quality, and also all of the drama and everything supersede her ability to be the superstar that Tony is, and that's just what it is. So she just easily says, listen, me and Tamar will take care of the cake, because basically me and Tamar have the money, we can make this happen, right? So they go to a cake person, and they look at some cakes and like, okay, we want this one, we need it by tomorrow, $2,800 for cake. That's what the guy said, 2,800. They're like, that's the cheapest, that's a family discount. He's like, yeah, for us to make it by tomorrow, 2,800. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's just so dope. That like you could just go somewhere and be like, all right, make this cake for me tomorrow. I'll give you 3,000 in the morning, and you know I'm good for it. Like I just love that. I was like, go ahead, girl. I like that. So again, Tamar is having a good time. Tamar looks good with her little wig on. Tony looks good. Like they both just look great, and they're having fun together. And Tamar is being the fun Tamar that I like, not the annoying Tamar. Like I just love to see that Tamar, And when she's doing something nice for her sisters and for other people. So They go to the rehearsal dinner. Again, Tony is bad. She's doing her thing. She looks good. Um, we come to the wedding part, right? There are some issues with like the seating chart is missing. So, and then Tamar comes with a dress for the wedding. I just thought, I'm like, okay, the wig you're wearing is weird. The dress almost looks like you were going to like, I don't know, to like a park event. I don't know. It was kind of ill fitting. Like it was just weird because Tamar's so up and down. Sometimes she's on point and sometimes she's just completely not. I don't know. You see the mother, of course, she was not supposed to be sitting at the same table with the father and his wife because she doesn't get along with them because she's still angry with them. But of course, because the seating chart is missing, she's at the table with Miss Wanda and her and the husband, right? Now, Miss E talks about it in the confessional. She's like, well, I thought Miss Wanda looked sad. And basically, I was able to say, I have the victory. When it comes down to it, Mama, you don't. Because Miss Wanda is happy. You may look better than Miss Wanda. Miss E looks very good for her age, okay? But you're alone, you're angry, and you're bitter. Miss Wanda might not have the best looks, but she has her man. She is very mild mannered. She seems to be supportive. She stays in her place. She's very quiet around the sisters. She doesn't come at anybody. She's not angry. The whole thing. And I think that she's the victor in this. You know what I mean? If it's about who got a man, like, yeah, you have my man. He cheated on me. You have the cheater, the whole thing. But he has been with Miss Wanda for over 20 years. And as far the girls don't seem to have a problem with her. They say she stays out the business. She seems pretty mild mannered. She seems nice enough. So for the mother to be on, oh, she looks sad and I'm the victor. No, you're not, because you're angry and bitter, and that's the sad part about it, Moving forward. Either way, was that it for episode 2? That's all I wrote. Okay, episode 3. We see the girls have decided now to walk Trina in and hold her train. So, of course, right out the bat, Traci slips and falls on the way down the aisle on like a pot or something like that, and she's very embarrassed. You have Judge Maybelline as the officiant of the wedding. I'm wondering, Tony's sitting over there, and I'm like, okay, where's Birdman? Are they together? Are they not? I don't know what's going on with that situation. So, now Traci is going off saying that. Okay, were they singing first? I don't know. Either way, the dad was singing Unforgettable, right? He wanted to sing Unforgettable to Traci, and the whole thing is that he can't sing. That's the funny part. Traci goes to help the father, right? And I don't know if they were both off cadence, whatever it was. We didn't really get to hear what was happening, but the sisters Tony and Tawanda are taking a video of the father and Traci singing, and they were laughing at the father because they're like, he don't forgot the words, the singing is horrible. They thought it was a funny moment. Traci gets back to the table afterwards, and her son's wife or girlfriend Olivia supposedly told her that her sisters were laughing at her when she was singing with her father. So Traci's going off, right? She's like, oh, they're going to be saying that I was drunk and all this stuff. And then, Sean comes over to get the father and say, Dad, we have to take pictures with you. And she calls him a B off the bat. And she starts going off. I think it was in a confessional saying, I don't trust him. He doesn't stay in his place. For some reason, he's always around the family taking pictures and videos of us. What's that about? I just don't trust his intention. And she's like, I don't know him. We did an album with him. I guess from like Sean and Tricky Stewart is him and a brother or whoever, and their producer. She's like, yeah, but that was a 3-month period in my entire 40-something year life. I don't know him like that, and I don't like him. And I can understand why, because he does, even on Tawanda's IG, when they do the little IG stories, he's always talking about the sisters as if he knows them, what they should be doing, the way they should be. You're intervening way too early. We don't know you. Like Traci's husband said the first time, I've been in this family for almost 30 years, and I never intervened in what's going on with the sisters. So for you to come in on your first time being here, you're intervening is very inappropriate, right? So, and his whole thing is, I know them. I know you don't know us. You don't know what's going on. This family dynamic and this pathology and pattern that they're in has been happening their entire life. There's nothing you can come in and say. Even, doesn't matter how long I've been around, my fiance and his family, I would never intervene, because whatever they're going through is a representation of, or a culmination of everything that they have. Haven't been in their life their whole life to be able to comment on or intervene when they're going through whatever. That's between them. You listen and you keep it moving, right? So, um, when Tawanda and Tony hear about what they say Olivia told Traci, they're like, we were not laughing at her. We were laughing at our father, right? And so Traci at this point leaves the table. She's like, I'm going to remove myself, goes to the back to the dressing area and is by herself. Tamar supposedly has to change her shoes, goes back there and is up in Traci's face. What's wrong, Trey? What's wrong? Traci says, listen, move out of my space, get out of my face, type of thing, grabs her hand. And remember, I think this is what David was alluding to before in her show, that, oh, she grabbed her hand and I saw this anger that I've never seen before and I had to do this and that, and grabbed her hand, and it turned into like an altercation between them, because now that all the sisters came back there and the whole thing. Traci's husband goes back there and they say she needs to leave. Traci and her husband need to leave the venue, and he takes her out. And at one point you hear Traci's husband saying, she just wants to feel respected by you guys. She just wants to feel supported by you guys, the whole thing. That wasn't the time or place for any of this to be happening. It wasn't the time or place for him to be talking about how she feels and the whole thing, right? So we do hear Traci yell at some point, y'all don't love me, y'all never liked me, y'all don't love me. So we know that this whole situation, there was so much deeper going on than this little situation, right? And so Kevin talks about how she wants respect, and she removes herself. She feel like she removed herself, they followed her, and that's what kind of precipitated the whole thing. Then we go into a recap, right? And that's when they show all the times during the season that Traci was disrespected and was not seen as an equal to her sisters. And you can see, I think Funky Dineva, another YouTuber that I follow that does amazing reviews, he said in the past, the issue with Traci is that they don't see the value in her the same way they do with Tony. Of course, she's a star. Tamar, she's an upcoming star. You see the value in her. She's like the second most, second richest or whatever. Tawanda, I guess she was the personal assistant organizer person. You have Traci, who was doing her thing. She had her bar, and Trina and the whole thing, and they just don't see the value in her as far as maybe its looks, maybe its voice, maybe what as in the Braxtons as a brand. And if they did, they would have signed her before when they were doing that whole contract situation. So, Tawanda brings up the fact that Miss Wanda tried to intervene and kind of calm her down, because I do think Traci was drinking because of the way she was talking. And then Miss Wanda at one point said, Traci, they were not laughing at you. But at that point, she had already blacked out. Like she said in the back, she blacked out. She don't know what happened. David says that there was a physical altercation when she grabbed Tamar's hair and the whole thing. We don't really know because nobody was back there, and they're not going to tell us the whole story. So now and let me just go back to something. There was another blogger, DJ something Sky. He had Traci on, and he did an interview with her about this situation, and she told her side of the story, where she basically said the same thing. Like she was upset, number one, because she was like, I don't like the fact that the show, this whole thing, like that things get set up by the show, which is what we know. Basically, she thought that it was set up by the show that the mother ended up at the table with the father and Miss Wanda. And of course, I don't put that past them. Of course, they could lose the CD chart and have the mother sitting there knowing she doesn't like them. So she was upset about that. She had removed herself at one point to call her producers and managers and tell them how she didn't like this part about the seating arrangement. And I mean, there were other parts of the story that she was trying to piece together and say, basically, of course, tell her side, but we don't really know because everybody has a different issue in the situation in their own perspective. But either way, if you want to hear more about that, I think it's DJ something Sky, and he did an interview with Traci after this episode aired. And then we see Traci's brother and dad. I guess they both still live in Maryland, and they meet with Traci. And the brother is talking to her. He asks her, number one, because remember, he lost his 24-year-old daughter. He says, Traci, what happened to you? We used to call me about 3 times a week, and we would just laugh about some things that happened with Lauren. And, anything, just memories. We would laugh together. And she told him, it gets hard. I know. But it gets hard, and I understood that because she is grieving too. So sometimes you try to be there so much for the closer family member, the person who lost that person, that you are not addressing your own grief. And she needed to take a step back. And it reminded me of when I lost my best friend. This was about 14, 10, 15, I don't know how many years ago. Either way, I was doing so much. I was, during that first week or two, I was with the family at every event, the funeral, the wake, the burial. I was helping to do the programs. I was helping to do like a display table that we did, the whole thing. And then after the burial, it was like I had to step back and breathe for a moment and just like take it all in and process it, because sometimes you're so close to it. And this is what happens to me all the time. You're doing during the death of somebody close, and then you don't really get a time to step back and grieve about it. And I think that's what happened with Traci here. So even though it's a year later in real time, she never really dealt with it. And so they suggested that she go talk to somebody about it, because they're like, all this anger stuff that happened, all the stuff that happened at the wedding should not have happened, but it would not have happened if you weren't bottling up everything. So Traci goes to a therapist. And I like this therapist. I'm sorry, I'm moving the camera. I have this little table right close to me. I like the therapist. She was so good. Okay. So Traci explained, of all my sisters and everything, we were not really that close, but I had my niece here with me. I have never had a female companion be with me as much as I was with my niece. And I think I told you guys in the last episode, I believe that the niece's mother was not in the picture. She was being raised by the father, and Traci also calls her daughter because they were kind of raising her in the same way. She was very close with Traci. So she said, I've never been that close with another female, as close as I was with my niece, and now she's gone. She said, I feel alone without her, because she was the closest female I was closest to. I told her everything. She was my support system. I was hers. So she feels like every year something happens. She's telling the therapist, every year something happens, and Black girls do rock, that it ends up being her fault. She feels that she's constantly overlooked. And then this is when they had the montage about when that time that they were sitting at the first therapist, Dr. Sherry, and she asked to go around and say what each person could improve on. And Tony says, I want Traci to lose 40 pounds right now. And it was so uncalled for and disrespectful, especially for her to say on national TV. It had nothing to do with improving her life or her relationship. You're talking about physically, as if somebody can lose 40 pounds right now. Like, who are you to say that? And you being the smaller, skinnier one that's in shape, it just makes it sound even worse. Like, it was just so mean. And that was the first time we saw Traci go off. Then they talk about, she talks about the birthdays. We went all the way to Napa to celebrate Tamar's birthday, even though our birthdays are a week apart and we were there smack dab in the middle. Why wasn't my birthday celebrated? Because nobody ever celebrates me in any way. Also, they talk about when they put her husband on blast on TV for cheating, and she didn't even know before filming that that this conversation was gonna be brought up, her personal life, and talking about her husband might have an outside child and this and that. You know what I mean? So it was just a representation of all of the times that they completely did Traci wrong and how they don't treat the others that way. So her thing is like, what did I do wrong? Why am I being treated that way? And I feel like it's because she bottles everything in. She never really stands up for herself. She is that one who we can do this to, and she will never really strike back at us, even though she holds it in, and when she lets out and explodes, that's how she handles it. But for some reason they feel like she is that one in the group that they can be that way too. And she might not have done anything, but that's just her role in the family, which is sad. So she talks about feeling discombobulated right at the moment, wanting to feel grounded. I think since her niece left her, she has felt like, sometimes you could feel like, what am I? Where am I? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So she feels very disconnected. And then she has a breakdown. And, the doctor's helping her to breathe. And she tells her, she removes herself. She goes in the bathroom, and the doctor tells her, sit up straight, put your shoulders back, and breathe. And, she hugs her. She puts a blanket around her. She gives her tea. And I just like that. Like, you never really see therapists be just like comforting. We're kind of taught to not, share any kind of physical boundaries. And I just like that it was more of a comforting setting. And she was just there being supportive in a way that you would somebody in your home. I just liked her technique, that doctor. And she was very calming. And, I'll probably watch that again, because I'm like, I want to be like that when I do start my own practice. So it was interesting that the doctor said to Traci, you know, your niece would not want this for you. She knows that you will be sad, but she would not want you to be stuck in this place and to stay there. And that was interesting. Just thinking about when we lose people, what do they think? What do they want for us? How do they want us to live? Would they want us to be stuck in sadness or to move on and live their life? Not move on and forget them. Yes, be sad, but not to be stuck there. And I thought that was a powerful statement. And so Traci talks about the wedding, and she says, "Okay, that happened. That's in the past. You can't continue to beat yourself up about your behavior, right? Moving forward, we can change it, right? We can get to the root of it, but you can't beat yourself up about it." So I thought I was just very pleased with that therapy session, and Traci loved it. She says, you know, I love this doctor. You know, I'll be back. And I didn't know that this was the first session, the first time she met her, so that was pretty powerful. So then we see now that everybody's in quarantine. So Tamar is calling Tony on a video call that we saw way too much of a recording because it was just dragging. But basically, Tamar's supposed to be taking classes online at Harvard, you know, one of those certificate classes about business. The mom has now moved in with Trina and Vaughn. They have a house that's big enough where the mother can have her own space, her own kitchen, her own bathroom. She's been cooking them breakfast. Vaughn is loving the food and the breakfast. We see Trina with no makeup and no hair, and she looked a little different, you know, with her robe on, you know what I mean? And you know, she's kind of like, you know, he's gonna love your cooking too much, and Vaughn is like, yeah, I love your cooking. All right, let me eat before I go off to work. Or he's like putting stuff in a Gladlock bag for work. Um, she There's a call between Mikey, the brother, calls Tony, and it was just interesting. He said he was checking in on her, and you see him sitting in his daughter Lauren's room. It looks like it's still as is, you know, her pillow and everything. And I'm just thinking about, oh my God, I don't want to know. I don't ever want to know what he feels like. I just can't imagine. You know, it's just a lot. We see Traci with her husband talking about him being a first responder. I'm guessing he works at a VA hospital with mentally ill patients. So now he could be deployed anywhere at any time. He goes out in a hazmat suit. He's a first responder. He's dealing directly with COVID patients. So they talk about him being safe and just, you know, a little bit of his experience. And then at the end, we see all of the sisters respond to hearing about Tamar's suicide attempt, how they found out and what was their first reaction, and the mother. And I guess this is what Tamar had the most issue with, because she feels like, why are they talking about me when I'm not even on the rest of the season or the episode? And the thing is that they're talking about their experience of you, of the situation, which I don't see anything wrong with, which should be expected because you were on a reality show. You have been on this reality show for several years. You did the same thing, so you know the same is going to be required of your sisters. For them to act like it didn't happen would be inauthentic. And you guys supposedly pride yourself on being authentic for the cameras. So either way, we'll see what next week brings. This is a pretty good season. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Thank you for joining Reality with T.